Before the first frost wipes most of my garden out, let's take a stroll through the October garden and see what's thriving and what's living on borrowed time. If we haven't met before, my name is Michelle from Michelle's Garden Grows, and on this channel we talk all things gardening, life, and faith. My garden is in the upper part of Southwest Virginia, Zone 7B, and I garden in a suburban backyard in raised garden beds and grow bags and vertical gardens. I love sharing my backyard garden adventures here in my suburban backyard garden, and I love connecting with other gardeners. If you like that too, then be sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of the garden chats or garden tours. And if you're not gardening yet, you should. I can tell you a whole new universe is waiting to be discovered in your own backyard through gardening. So this is the west view of the garden, and this is the view we see from our house and our patio. And as you can see, so far the Sungolds have survived the cold nights, which I think we got down into the 40s, as I had said. Some of these look great still. The nasturtium flowers, which are edible, they love the cooler weather. They actually thrive, and I like to flank my entryway with nasturtiums and also marigolds. These are great colors for the fall. I'm so glad they're sticking around. So I love this trellis. It's a cattle fence trellis, so it's cattle fencing, and it's really inexpensive, and you can get it at the Tractor Supply store. And I love this time of year because it's completely covered in Sungold tomatoes and some of the, I think it's Brandywine that I have growing that's indeterminate. They're the vining kind, but I just really love to see it completely covered. However, the challenge is I have to use this stool or something higher to reach the tomatoes on the top. What I love about this stool is that it folds up very easily. And I store it right here because it's waterproof as well. So you can see the tomatoes are really starting to get hit with the cold weather. We've got dead vines, but then we have nice looking green tomatoes. And if you live in a zone that will be getting your frost soon, these may or may not ripen. These most likely will not. So you'll want to bring all your green tomatoes in, and they can ripen in a sunny window, and there's some other methods. Now I do have one that is starting to blush, and so I think this one will make it to ripen out here. But again, I have quite a few green ones that will need to probably go inside. The honeybees are still out, and they love the nasturtium, and they are thriving in this cooler weather. I like to flank all of the corners with these. They're just beautiful. And now we can see cucumbers. The cucumbers are surviving. And have you ever gotten cucumbers in October? I have them on this side too. Look at that. That needs to be harvested. I should have already harvested that, but I was waiting for the video. I've got more. And way up here, this is the first year I have had cucumbers that look this good because I planted them in late July, and they have had no pest pressure, no cucumber beetles as usual, and I will always plant them late now. And here's something funny. I have a cucumber all the way over here because the vine has gone all the way over onto my pepper trellis. And you can see I have lots of orange peppers. Need to harvest those. So they've survived the cooler temps, but they're living on borrowed time, so I'm going to need to harvest those as well. I really wish I remembered what type of marigolds I planted because they have been proliferous. They are almost invasive, but I love these colors for the fall. I don't think they're going to last much longer because the weather is getting cooler at night, as I said. And over here, we have my carrots that I grew, and these are from the Gardenary Easy Garden Kit. And they're looking pretty good. Only need to thin a few of them. And then the Swiss chard, which is very hardy in the cool weather. It's looking gorgeous. The zinnias are still surviving, and just this past week we had monarchs all over these zinnias. I think we had like 4 of them. And I even found several caterpillars on my swamp milkweed about a week ago. And here's the okra. It's still growing, although it looks pretty shabby, and it's a warm, hot season actually. It likes the hot season, so it will not be around much longer. So over here is a plant that I'm really sad about because I don't think I'm going to end up harvesting many of the roselles. This is hibiscus roselle, and I planted it in my little tea garden, and it is blooming now, but I cannot harvest any of the roselles until it blooms. And this is a heat-loving plant. I should have gotten it in the garden a lot earlier, but we had such a cold spring that I waited until June, and I should have gotten it in a lot earlier. But isn't it gorgeous? I hate to see this plant die. So once again, these beautiful marigolds, beautiful color for fall. This is our horseradish bed. We have not harvested any horseradish before. These plants are only like a year or so old, but it's very frost hardy and it loves the cool weather. So this one will be sticking around, and we'll either harvest the horseradish roots right before the frost, or we will wait until next year. I did end up getting some pest pressure on this horseradish. I had harlequin bugs. They're beautiful insects, but they did quite a bit of damage to the leaves, but they did not hurt the roots, of course. So this bed is looking really shabby, and I should have already cleaned it up, but it's got Roma and San Marzano tomatoes, and some of them are still green. The leaves are looking really bad, but I still have some that are ripe and ready to pick. So I've got a lot of work cut out for me in this bed. And in general, there's a lot of cleanup to do here. Here's an example of some of the tomatoes that are not doing well. Now I have to say, these orange tomatoes did not do very well. If you don't pick them really early, they get really mushy, and I think they were called persimmon, but I'm not sure. I'm really terrible about keeping track. This one looks terrible too. So we have a lot of nasty tomatoes. Also in this bed are radishes that I planted a month ago, and they have been getting eaten up by something, and I think it's harlequin bugs because I found a little tiny one, like a baby, on there the other day, and they really like brassicas because they were on my horseradish too. Here's another view of the cucumber trellis, and remember, these are cattle fencing is what we use for our trellis. You can get them at the Tractor Supply store, and these are T-posts that I had my husband spray paint so that it would match and look aesthetic. But you can see cucumbers are trailing up to the very top. Something I think that's really important to me and to garden design is to have plenty of seating in your garden, or a focal point. It makes a wonderful focal point. This bench was my mother-in-law's, and so it makes me think of her every time I see it. And over here against the fence, I have some zinnias, but apparently I kept wondering what this huge plant was, and it's got buds all over it waiting to bloom, which I guess it won't make it because it's so late in the year. But I looked it up, and it says it's a common hollyhock. Not sure where it came from. I guess it's a volunteer from a bird. So the other seating we have in our garden is this old table and chairs we've had for over 20 years. It's really held up well. I sit here, we sit here. I also use it as a place to do some of my work when I'm harvesting. And the chairs are getting pretty worn. We'll have to replace those, but this table will last for many more years because it's wrought iron. So it's really important to have... Oh, there's Minnie. Hey, Minnie. She is a 16-year-old dog, and she's been having some rough times, but I think we've got her pain under control, and she's living a little bit better quality of life than she was just a week ago. Hey, Minnie. So in this next part of the garden, you can see where this basil got really hit by the cooler night temperatures. Basil does not like the cold, and it does not like being in the refrigerator. And over here, the Swiss chard is looking beautiful. It can tolerate light frost here. And again, I have herbs on the edges. You can see the chives, the thyme. It smells so good. And this basil really got hit. Wow. So this okra is about finished. It did not do well towards the end of the year. I think it got some pest pressure, but it still has a few okra pods on it. This one looks too ripe, but I think it's still soft, so it might still work. But this thing is like a tree. Look at the stalk on this thing, or trunk. I should call it a trunk. It literally is like a tree. We're going to have to take like a saw to get this thing down. Again, I love to put herbs on the corners and sides of the garden bed, and this is oregano. And beside that, I have more carrots growing and some thyme. So down here we have more basil. I have tons of basil, and zinnias are still looking good. I have some more peppers. Let's see. Yep, and I have squash, but this squash is not going to make it. And then over here is the section of the garden that we still need to replace. We still have these little wooden garden beds. They leak. They don't do very well, and we don't have the irrigation in them either. But this is the Tromboncino squash trellis, and this is my first year growing it. If you harvest it when it's really young, you can eat it like squash or zucchini, but as it ages, you can eat it more like a butternut squash. And I did get a squash vine borer in this plant over here, but I was able to get that out and it survived. And it's even got some new growth going. I don't know how far that's going to make it. And then it even got one that rotted literally on the vine. So that's really strange. And here's another Tromboncino squash. And I have pole beans. These were volunteer pole beans that are still growing. Some of them look okay. Some of them don't look too great. And I have a calendula that is blooming. They did really good in the spring, but in the summer they get really messy and die out. And then they seem to reappear in the fall. And that one's about to open. You can make so much from calendula flowers, from salves. They're edible. They're really a great flower. Over here is my fennel, and I mostly planted fennel to attract beneficial insects such as ladybugs, lacewings, hoverflies, and parasitic wasps. And I did see some of those in my garden this summer, so I think it's doing its job. And I believe it likes cooler weather, but not frost. And it is a perennial, so it will come back. And what's important to know with fennel is that it doesn't play well with other plants in the garden as a companion. So that's why I have it over here in its own little bed. And it is a perennial, as I said, so it will come back next year. And I will probably have to just leave this bed in place instead of replacing it with more metal garden beds like we're going to do these other ones, because I really don't want to lose the plants, and I also don't want to dig them up and put them in a new bed, but we'll see. Now the comfrey that I planted this year did not do well. It did not like this bed. I don't know if it didn't get enough water, but it did not like it. I'll have to plant some more of that next year and see what we can do. And over here at my retaining wall, every October these daisy mums, chrysanthemums bloom. When everything else is starting to die out, they come and cheerfully make their presence known in the fall. They were given to me by a neighbor. She had given me some of her cuttings, and I planted them around this retaining wall, and I'm very glad I did. And the swamp milkweed is looking pretty terrible. Aphids have destroyed it. Look at this one, it's really bad. But I tell you, we had lots of monarch caterpillars and lots of monarchs, so they did their job. Now this flower is still blooming pretty nicely, and it's called Scabiosa, and I planted that from seed, from Renee's garden seed. This is a very unusual color for a flower. I think it's called like midnight, something like that. And they get these really interesting pincushion looking pods after they finish flowering. So that, I think it's really interesting. I really love the contrast between these orange marigolds and the silver on the lavender. Nature really is the best floral designer. This is our second sweet potato plant. The other one's on the patio, and we're going to have to harvest the sweet potatoes soon because they do not like the frost, and I believe the frost will damage the actual sweet potatoes that are underneath the soil, so we need to get that done soon. They are very heat loving. And over here are our blueberries. If you found value in this video, please remember to like the video and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our garden talks. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!